Alright. We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies. This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome, baseball coaches. Great to be here with all of you this week, our weekly get-together, where we go from new coaches to good coaches and from good coaches to great coaches, where we combine the best of the old school baseball wisdom with some of the new school stuff that also works very well. We use the 80-20 principle to guide us when it comes to prioritizing the key parts of the game that we should coach up first and foremost, and then go from there so we can be the best coach possible. Like I mentioned last week, we're in a stretch of 3 episodes that are going to be a little shorter than normal. And in this week's episode, I'm going to share with you a tip that can be used as a drill in and of itself or part of another hitting drill that you already use, if in fact it fits in. I got this idea from Robbie Britt, coach at Eastern Michigan University. And this was published in coachesinsider.com. So Robbie Britt, Coach Britt, made what I thought was a really good recommendation, a tip for teaching players, specifically hitters, how to make better decisions when it comes to swinging, better swing decisions. So Coach Britt takes a handful of baseballs, puts a layer of athletic tape, the white athletic tape, that you back in the day you'd wrap your ankles with or your wrists with. Then he uses colored electric tape and he puts a stripe or two of the colored electric tape around the baseballs. And then he underhands or overhands. I always recommend trying to overhand throw as often as possible, even if it's from a chair or a kneeling position. I just think the angle of the pitch replicates more of what hitters are going to see in baseball. But nevertheless, he has his players swing at a designated color and take the rest, or take the designated color, in other words, the ball with that designated color taped around it, and then swing at the rest of the pitches or the rest of the tosses. Now, this is a fun way, an easy way to start the improvement process or improve the swing decision process a little bit for your hitters. It's fun, it's easy to do, it's quick, and it can be implemented tomorrow. Now, the con to this is that it doesn't teach location-based swing decision. It teaches colored-based swing decision, not location-based swing decision. And I think swing decision should be based on location, insofar as the hitter's not taking a pitch. If they're preset, their pre-pitch mindset is they're not taking the pitch just to take one. In my opinion, it should be a location-based swing decision. Makes sense, right? There's the hitting zone, which is location-based, and there's the strike zone. That's location-based. But it would be a very good, easy, entry-level drill for players that are new to swing decision. What I like about it is how quick and easy it can be to implement. It can be fun for players. It's simple to understand. Hey, swing at every ball except the ball with blue tape on it. Now, some of the baseballs won't have any tape on them. Some of them will have different colors. You might use red or blue or green, maybe 3 different colors, but it really makes them see the pitch really well, really makes them see the ball really well, and it forces them to be ready to swing at every pitch, but not swing at every pitch. So it trains that mentality, that hitting mindset of, hey, I'm ready to hit until I see the pitch, not I'm ready to hit regardless of where the pitch is, or I'm going to take the pitch, although it might end up being a meatball right down the middle that warranted a swing because it ends up being by far the best pitch for the hitter in that at-bat. So there's definitely a trade-off here, and it doesn't teach up the area-based swing decision, but I thought it was something that, one, it teaches up the most important thing in hitting, and that is swinging at the right pitches and taking the wrong pitches. So get 10 baseballs, put a layer of athletic tape around them, put red, blue, green, electric tape around 3 or 4 of them. And the cool thing about doing like green and blue is those colors are, if the green is a certain green, are going to look somewhat similar coming out of the hand. Although if you're going to get tricky with the hitters on this and challenge them more, I would just throw the pitch faster. And you could start off simple at the beginning, especially if your hitters are really young, and just say, hey, you're swinging at any baseball that has tape around it. Now, you got to be careful if they can see it in your hand pre-pitch. That doesn't help your cause if you're trying to help them decide on the fly as the pitch is coming in if they should swing at the pitch or not. So you mess around with that. You might keep it in your glove and kind of bring it out, or have it kind of hidden a little bit as it's behind your back, and flip it out, throw it out. But you can mess around with it and find ways that work better or not. But thought it was a quick, easy way to implement swing decisions into your everyday hitting drills, especially for those hitters and teams that are new to learning about swing decision, hitting plans and swing decision-based hitting plans, etc. All right, part 2. This segment centers around an article by John Soucy, head baseball coach at Western Connecticut State University, with some additional editing from Frank Leone, head baseball coach at Mount St. Mary's University in Maryland. So I hope I'm saying that right, Coach Soucy. And this is an article written for the Inside Pitch magazine, and it's titled Common Sense About Batting Slumps. And what I like to do is read through all this stuff that I can find, watch videos, talk to coaches, watch all the greats, watch the current greats, read all the books, and I try to curate it and bring you the best of the best that I find so you don't have to waste all that time. And also, more importantly, it can get filtered through a lens of almost 40 consecutive years of baseball experience. Now, I'm going to read some of this article here by Coach John Soucy, and then we'll unpack it a little bit so we can use it to be better coaches. The first sentence comes out swinging. There are many factors that go into a batting slump. Coaches and players are quick to make changes and adjustments when an individual is slumping, but sometimes you have no control over it. Baseball is a game built on failure. Failure occurs the majority of the time, even for the great hitters. Furthermore, Coach Soucy says, let's discuss some common reasons for slumps and what we can do as coaches and players to help combat them. Slumps can be broken down into 4 categories, 2 of which we have some control over and 2 of which we do not. So I'm going to add in here. I like when we can quantify and put things into categories. There's always gray area and there's always going to be outliers, but I like the idea of breaking up hitting slumps into the separate parts and things that cause them. We did this a couple weeks back when we talked about holding the running game, and we broke it into certain parts. So we make sure that we address the right part. We identify where the real problem is or isn't, so we can focus on that component rather than trying to fix the whole. We work on the parts, so the sum of the parts is much better come game time. So back to the article. So slumps can be broken down into 4 categories. Number 1, facing a string of tough pitchers. Hitting a baseball is difficult. Now throw in a pitcher with great velocity, great movement, a really good pitcher, and of course that makes it a lot more difficult. Now, hitters have no control over this. Sometimes you just have to tip your hat to the pitcher and say, you got me. It's hard to call it a slump when you face 3 great pitchers in a row. Remember, hitters will face good pitchers on occasion who will just shut them down. The second category, bad luck. Ever had one of those days when you barrel up some good swings, yet the ball goes right at a fielder? This is an example of what we cannot control. All we can do is take the best swing that we can, but sometimes the result is an out. Mix in a few consecutive days of bad luck and you have a slump. I once had a player deal with bad luck for nearly an entire season. It seemed like every game he got robbed or he smoked one right at a defender. We tried to make light of it and laugh it off, but eventually frustration set in. All he could see for his efforts were subpar hitting stats. Your batting average does not go up for well-hit outs. Yet you hit a blooper, what's known as a Texas leaguer or a dying quail, your average goes up and things look better. They say things all even out in the end, but sometimes they don't. Simply put, there are times when you are snake bitten. Now I'm going to add in, this is very rare that bad luck happens for an extended period of time for one player or even a team. And when I say extended, more than a month. And I do think things tend to even out if objectively observed and tracked. Now, they may even out on the back end of a long season or next week, but definitely luck plays into hitting results. And another one you could add to this is an umpire makes 5 bad strike ball calls in the game and you got 2 of them and they were both on third strikes that the hitter might not have even been able to reach. So recapping category number 1, facing a string of tough pitchers, 2 or 3 games of tough pitchers, especially as players get a little older or the competition is more advanced. Category number 2, bad luck. And those 2 things are out of the player's control. I think these things should be identified. I think these things should be validated with the player or players. But I don't think we should spend a lot of time breaking this down or bringing it up too often. But it should be addressed, brought up, validated that, yes, hey, the fact of the matter is we faced tough pitchers the last 3 games, or the last 3 or 4 games, you've had bad calls go your way. You've hit 4 or 5 hard hit balls that have been caught. So we shouldn't shy away from addressing something that our players are probably also seeing, validating a little bit of that bad luck or the fact that there were some tough pitchers on the bump, bringing their A game against us over the past couple weeks. Now back to the article. In these next two categories, category 3 and 4, Coach Susie is going to break down the two categories that we have control over. Number 3, poor decisions at the plate. Now, before we discuss category number 3 and category number 4 that Coach Susie outlined in this article, a few weeks back, I brought up Royce Lewis, and Royce Lewis said he doesn't do slumps. He doesn't believe in slumps. In other words, he doesn't focus on slumps. He doesn't talk about slumps. So that would be ideal, right? Just not to talk about slumps and just treat every at-bat as its own thing, as its own event, as an isolated event, separate from anything that came before or that's going to happen in the future. That's ideal. That's presence. That's mindfulness. That's ideally where we need to get to. This article discusses how to work through the mental game of hitting, specifically batting slumps, for the majority of players that aren't going to be fully present or get to being fully present as a youth baseball player. So the first two categories, like we said, discussing some things out of our control, validating them, addressing them quickly. But category 3 and category 4 are the two categories, the two areas that our hitters have control over. Back to the article, category 3, poor decisions at the plate. This is something we can control. Review your at-bats, counts, and the pitches you swing at. You need to be 100% focused and concentrate on each at-bat. When you start to struggle and wear a few collars, you start pressing and trying to do too much. The next thing you know, you're chasing pitches out of the strike zone and causing your at-bats to be unfocused and unsuccessful. You only get so many at-bats in a season, so you cannot afford to waste any. We try to avoid, quote, fog out at-bats. These are the at-bats we waste or throw away by making bad decisions or due to a lack of focus. To see how fragile at-bats and an average are over the course of a typical season, consider these numbers. Over 100 at-bats, say you get 30 hits. Your batting average is 300. That is solid. Most would consider that a good year. Now consider these additional possibilities. Say once in every 10 at-bats, you have a, quote, fog out, or you just don't give the at-bat total concentration. In other words, you lose focus. What if you could get to redo those 10 at-bats? This time, however, you give total focus and concentration. You turn 3 of those outs to hits. Now your batting average increases to 330. That could be the difference between a good year and an all-league or an award type year. Furthermore, what if you got another 1 or 2 to fall in? Now the average jumps to 350. That's a huge jump from 300 to 350 and the result of focusing and making better decisions. Category number 4, mechanical. Mechanical issues are the least probable of the 4 factors, but far too often it is the first thing players and coaches want to blame. Now I'm going to add in here, mechanical issues, in other words, swing issues, are the least probable of the 4 factors when it comes to hitting slumps. But like the article here says, like Coach Susie says, they are far too often the first thing players and coaches want to blame. Continuing on with the article here, chances are low, but it can happen. If a player has been hitting well, then begins to struggle, look for physical causes. Mechanics can change due to a slight injury, change in body type, such as fatigue. When one of these things occurs, players resort to making a change to compensate for their physical state. What they think is helping them has thrown a monkey wrench into their normal mechanics. This change throws everything out of order. Even the slightest of changes can be catastrophic to a good swing. So before you go making drastic changes in a swing or your mechanics, dive deeper into possible reasons why they may have changed. So I'm going to fast forward here to the conclusion paragraph of the article. Live at-bats in a game may be one of the hardest things to do in sports, hitting a round ball with a round bat. You have no idea what path the pitch will take. Once the ball leaves your bat, it must avoid 9 fielders to yield a positive result. It's something to think about. So combating slumps is a big part of the game of baseball. Our players are going to play a game where they fail at the plate 7 out of 10 times, and it's still considered successful. It can be a hard pill to swallow, so they need to be mentally strong to deal with the failures. We really do learn from them, so stay positive. All right, so when a hitter's struggling, as a coach, we should assess to what degree are each of these categories playing in that current slump. Facing some tough pitchers? Okay. Bad luck? poor decisions at the plate, or is it a swing issue? And it may very well be more than one of those categories that are adding to the slump. And as a coach, here's how I would handle this. If a player's struggling and the pitchers are making great pitches, just be upfront with them and say, hey, those pitchers are making some great pitches, but sooner or later, they're going to leave some meatballs right over the plate. You're going to get some cookies coming your way. You're going to get some really good pitches to hit. Those will be coming your way soon, so just stick with it. If they're hitting the ball well, but the defense is making good plays, the line drives are going right to the infielders or right to the outfielders, or the umpire had a string of bad calls that just happened to be with that hitter up, address it, shine a little light on it. I wouldn't dwell on it. I would just tie it in with the message of what goes around comes around. If it's poor decisions at the plate, lack of focus, swinging at the wrong pitches, not being on time, those are the things that need to be addressed heavily and early and often. And if it's a swing issue, let's be certain it's a swing issue, and let's rule out the other three categories. Definitely category number 3, poor decisions at the plate, before we start tinkering with the swing too much or at all. So I really like this article titled Common Sense About Batting Slumps by Coach Susi, S-U-S-I, from the Inside Pitch magazine. And I'll leave you with this quote that Coach Susi added to the top of this article. It says, quote, "You only get so many at-bats in a season, so you cannot afford to waste any of them," end quote. And that's another reason to have a good hitting plan, a good hitting approach, because it's a pitch-to-pitch approach, a pitch-to-pitch plan. All right. Next week, we're going to talk about optimizing the pitcher's between pitch routine. Also, I'm going to share out another pitching tip to minimize the freebie runs, the easy runs that we give the other team. And lastly, next week, we'll talk about a tip for dealing with parents. This tip can help reduce, minimize, ideally eliminate any of the negative talk about you as a coach and your coaching staff's decisions that goes on away from the field between the parents and the players, which can erode player buy-in, family buy-in, the coachability of players, team cultures, etc. So that'll be next week. Look forward to being back here with all of you. Until then, let's take care of our health so we can take care of our family, our close friends, our kids, our players, our team. Let's take this information. Let's go out there. Let's put it into play. Y'all take care. And until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.